Okay. The one very strong question that's asked is what is the connection between the parsha of Mikeitz and the Chanukah? Right. There's really three parshas that typically on an annual yearly cycle, they always end up being on Chanukah. And one of them is really Mikeitz. Mikeitz is really the one. You have Mikeitz Yeshiv and then Vayigash, but Mikeitz is really it's always the one in the middle. So what's the connection between the two? So 12 years ago, when I first started giving shiurim, it's actually recorded on rabbiblon.com if you want to look it up under the parsha section, 2013. So we had a whole piece with this and said a few different answers. There's a sefer called the Beis Aaron, the Potiker Rebbe. So he over there provides a few answers to this on Dafim if you want to look it up, Nun Zayin to Nun Tes. He says like this. The main answer is that there's a common denominator between the Mitzrim and the Yavanim. They both denied HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Both the Egyptians, let's talk about them first, right? They had their stars, they had their Nile that they worshipped. They didn't worship one entity. They didn't worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which was more prevalent back then. And similarly, the Yavanim. The whole idea behind the Yavanim was they were very, very smart people. Aristotle, right? He's an incredible wise person with a lot of philosophical ideas, but nevertheless, something that they were unable to comprehend in this world, something that was beyond them. So then they didn't go for that. That's why we say in Al Anisim, we say Bimei Matzah, etc., etc. They went after specifically the chukim. Chukim are mitzvahs that we perform that we don't know why we perform them. We don't understand the real reason for them. So they went after specifically the chukim, aka something that was above their intellectual understanding in this world. And the idea is that they didn't understand Hashem. They didn't understand. They couldn't prove that a God created this world, that it was one entity. So that's the connection between the two. That they both denied HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and both victories symbolize our victory, that now we have a munah, we have full belief that Hashem is in control of every single thing, that not only did He create this world, but every single small, minute detail of our lives, every single blade of grass, every single small detail in this world is divinely orchestrated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'kvodo bat. So, that's the story over there. That's when Yosef was victorious in Mitzrayim, similar to the Jews who were victorious, the Chashmonaim who were victorious against the Greeks. He actually goes into explain over there. That's why we have something by Ner Chanukah that we really don't have in any other area of halacha. All of Ner Chanukah, and there's a lot of other deeper ideas behind this and Torahs behind this, but technically speaking, one could fulfill his obligation with just lighting one candle on Chanukah. Maran Shabbos, Chafal from Beis, the Brisa, Taner Rabbanan, Nerish Beisa. And then Mahadrin, right? One is Yotze Mikra Din. Then Mahadrin, which means more of a hiddur way of doing it, more of a preferable way, is one lights every. And then Mahadrin, you have Machlokas Rishon, Machonim. We know what us, we Ashkenazim do. We light from 1 to 8, and everyone goes up every single night. Everyone lights. Men, women's another discussion of itself. Fine, married, not this, that, fine. So he explains that so too when it comes to belief. We believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu differently. Some people have more emunah bitachon than others, some people have less. It's the whole question of hishtadlus bitachon, which we're going to get into in the next piece, so I don't want to talk about it so much. We're going to get into it momentarily, but that's why there are different levels, because people have different levels of belief in Hashem, and that Hashem is in charge of everything. That is one answer that we provided in the past. Now, another answer is, I don't think he said this answer. If I'm not mistaken, someone after the shir came over or said a comment to me and was like, this is another answer, I think. Which is there's a direct link between what happened on Hanukkah and Paro's dreams. Paro, just to remind us, he dreamt that there were small cows and big cows. There were small sheaves, which is a bundle of wheat, and larger sheaves. And the small cows consume the large cows. The small sheaves basically were dominant over the larger sheaves. So we find the same thing, Rabim Miad Ma'atin, that there was a military victory that many fell in the hands of a few. that the few were victorious over the many. So we see another similarity between parshas Mikeitz and Chanukah is that the underdog is going to prevail. A lot of other Torahs and that the Maharal going into the Muhammad. I don't want to go into too much because I just want to say a quick idea over here. So that's another idea. Also, Yosef was trying to add. We also add on Chanukah, maybe Mosef Aholech we add. So those are three potential answers. But there's a base Yosef, a base Halevi, which is quoted all over the place. It's the base Halevi, the opening base Halevi in this week's parsha in Mikeitz. Says like this. The Medrash Rabbah says, the Bereshis Rabbah says over here in Mikeitz, Asher Hagever Asher Sama Shamav Temniv Tacho, that Zeh Yosef, which means that it's talking about a person who's going to be praiseworthy that he places trust in Hashem. It's referring to Yosef. Then it says Velopana El Rahavim, and he doesn't face the arrogant people. What's this referring to over here? Shali said, so Yosef told the Sar HaMashkim, the cupbearer, after he successfully and properly, accurately interpreted his dream, he said, Ki'im zachartani vizkartani. He said, but remember me. He said it twice. So in other words, we see that the Medrash over here, a lot of people, Farshim Me'es Akash on this Medrash. Right? It's a contradiction. Steer Minei Obey. Because first the Medrash is applying the pasuk that he has bitachon on Yosef, then it's saying he doesn't have bitachon. He doesn't have belief in Hashem. He doesn't trust Hashem that Hashem will take care of him, because he said, if you remember me. So he told him to get involved. So there's a lot of questions over here. Furthermore, is that really such a bad thing to tell him, remember me? It's a shadless. It's doing an endeavor. It's striving to the best of his ability to try to do what he could, and Hashem will take care of the rest. So comes along the Beis Halevi, and he says, "Dehine be'emes ha'Torah hetir la'adam ha'ishtadlus b'sarchi gufa." The Torah allowed hishtadlus, which means us to strive, us to do an act, an endeavor, to try to help with our needs, our financial necessities, our body, what we need. Like it says, "Berechecha b'chol asher tasa," and it says, "V'safta deganecha v'tiroishecha." They're talking about gathering our grain, and from there, the Gemara in the beginning of Ketzim Avarchi on Lamed Hey and Brachos says, Rabbi Shmuel says, "Hinhag behem minhag derech eretz." You go out to work. We can't just wait by the stoop of our homes and say that everything's just going to come delivered easily. We have to do something. We have to do an act. Ikra Inyan explains the Beis Halevi Yeshleimer Dezehu Klal Isha Yisrael Sheyeh Libo Yishaykiru B'Teich B'Hashem. We should have bitachon. We should believe in Hashem. So how can we reconcile now believing in Hashem that He will provide for us? He'll take care of every single need that we have, whether small or large. How can we reconcile that? How does that fit in with now going out to work? We're not relying on Hashem anymore. We're doing something ourselves. Most people, says the Beis Halevi, are unable to attain full belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can't do it. And therefore, and therefore, the hishtadlus, us going to work, us doing an endeavor, doing an act, striving, is permitted, so that we will get assisted, and that will help us. The hishtadlus will help us reach a higher level of bitachon. The Sarah kol adam l'chadesh lo malacha ve'esei kadesh yeh nekel l'b'tayich b'Hashem, and that's why everyone needs to work to find a job that will be easy and will enable him to reach a proper bitachon in Hashem. We find by the Torah that they allow sometimes that we'll get assistance to get to a higher level, right? We find a similar idea. Something that we shouldn't be doing is allowed so that we can get to the proper level. Right? The Gemara Pesachim Dafnu and Lo'olam Yasok, Adam B'Amar Yehuda Amar Lo'olam Yasok Adam B'Torah Mitzvos. Very good. Why should we learn Torah not for its own sake? Shaloi lishma, so that from the shaloi lishma, not for learning Torah, for that when we, even if we learn with ulterior motives, it will get us there to start learning Torah and performing mitzvahs for pure motives, unadulterated motives, so that we get to the lishma. So it assists, the shaloi lishma assists us, enables us to get to the lishma. So we see, here's the key line over here. Here's the double underline. The amount of hishtadlus, striving, the endeavors, actions that we need to do, work that we need to do. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not an identical coin. It depends on the person. Kol echad lefi ercho. Everyone according to his ability. If a person is able to get away with just working a little bit, and he's okay with that, so that's not good for him. Someone who has bitachon and he says, I only need to just work very, very little. So then if he's going to increase the time that he spends towards work, if he's going to try to have too much ishtadlus, more than he needs because of his mental mindset and belief in Hashem, so that's already considered a sin. He's going to work more. Neged midas habitachon ki harbe lahaloch acher hishtadlus v'lo batach. That's considered a sin for him because this fellow's on a high level. Someone who is bitachon is much at a much lower level than his friend. It's much less. He's able to work more because his bitachon isn't as high. He could work more, and that extra work that he does will help him now get more bitachon. The ikar bechinas bitachon who because that's the purpose of bitachon. Realizing Hashem's control of everything, I could just cast myself on him, throw my load on Hashem. And then says the Beis Halevi weiter, someone who's going to have too much hishtadlus, he's going to be working too much, trying too much with his own actions, with his own striving, oinsho, who's going to get punished. What's his punishment going to be? Shemina Shemayim Yosiflo Al Hitztarchuso Lishtadlis. We're going to see that from heaven they're going to add, he's going to need to work even more, which we see all the time. Below Yuzman Lo Parnasaso Rak Al Yedei Yegias Basar Haderech Shabach. And his parnasa, it won't be readily available and easy prepared. He's going to have to toil, work hard. So, I mean, you tie that in my own life. We're doing pretty well. I don't even consider what I do work. I literally get paid to learn Torah with people. It's literally what I do. I mean, does that even work? I don't know. Now, obviously, my case is different than most other cases, but the point is that if a person has the bitachon, they're going to be taken care of. Now let's tie that back into Yosef. Yosef HaTzadik, he wasn't called a tzaddik for no reason. Well, it was really because of the episode of Hesh's Potiphar, like we discussed last week in the parsha. But an additional idea over here is what? Is that he had a very high level of bitachon. And tzaddikim, they get judged kechut hasayra. They get judged much more harshly than other people, regular people. Yosef told the Saram Ashkim, the cupbearer, this is an incredibly small amount of hishtadlus. This is literally a few words that Yosef is saying. I don't even know if that's considered an act. It's just verbal, a few words. Dari Aimbo Rak Dibor Echad. It's literally just a few words. Especially Yosef saw that this whole episode happened. It was divinely orchestrated. That now they came into the jail and he interpreted the dreams, and now he's got to get out of jail free because of it. He saw it all Yad Hashem. All Hashem. Tari Yosef Haven the Kolma Shahuva Sar Mashkim Labeisasar Vachin Chol Alomu Hura Kedei Shemizet Tim Sagul Yosef. Like we just said, this was also that he gets redeemed from prison. And the truth is, he says in parentheses, the language of the pasuk indicates that Yosef said he was just talking, he was saying what's going to happen in the future. He didn't even tell the cupbearer to remember him. He just said, by the way, if you remember me in the future, then this will happen. If you just mention me. But he was all talking about the future. All right, let's talk about the whole pasuk. In 3 days, Paro will return you to your position. Remember me, if you remember me. If you do kindness with me, you remember me again. Then he's going to take me out of the jail over here. So this pasuk is extra. It's totally lengthy for no reason. There's a lot of repetition over here. Shloimer answers the Beis Halevi. Yosef didn't say, he didn't request from the cupbearer to remember him. He was saying it like he was predicting what's going to happen in the future. He said, what will happen in the future? So therefore concludes the Beis Halevi. Since we see that Yosef, he was punished for this. We see it's clear from this, the kol kach haya bitchoin gadol. Yosef HaTzadik, we see how strong his bitachon, his belief in Hashem was. Ad ki gam zeh hamuat lemoiser nechshav aloi. Even just a few words was considered extra that he was judged unfavorably for. We see he was punished, and from this punishment we see godol bitchono mashin l'shar mamish. We can't even understand how great the Yosef's bitachon was from this, that he's getting called out for it from the Medrash Rab over here. That's why it says that Yosef had bitachon. You're right, he had bitachon. But he shouldn't have went to the arrogant people. That was arrogant on Yosef's level, so to say. That's what we see from the Inyan of bitachon. We discussed this like a week or two ago. We discussed why should we rejoice on Chanukah. And the whole piece over there, the first one, the part one, not the part two, I think it was Maimer Hay in the Yarech L'Moadim, that the whole idea of why should we rejoice, why the Rambam says that Chanukah are Yemei Simcha, are days of happiness. So the one reason is that because a person, when they believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're happy. They're happy about everything. When they believe in Hashem. When they realize that every single instance, when we realize that every single occurrence in our life, whether chas v'shalom is a death of someone that's close to us, whether chas v'shalom someone gets sick, whether a person loses a job, whether a person has whatever issues they have in their life, something happened. There's a fire in their house. There was something happened with whatever it was, an accident, whatever it is. When a person realizes that it's all part of Hashem's masterful plan, then they're going to rejoice. And that's what happened in the time of Chanukah. Rabbi Miyamatim, bunch of yeshiva guys who were highly outnumbered, and they were military, from a military perspective, they were complete underdogs because they were fighting seasoned warriors with fancy military equipment, the Greeks, and still they had belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because they had belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at least one approach is, that's why they were able to prevail. Hashem gave them Siyat Deshmaya, special assistance over there. And therefore, that's why Chanukah is a time of Simcha. Because just like they had belief in Hashem, so too we have to tap into that belief in Hashem. And with that, that's another reason why Chanukah, the Rambam says that the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is a mitzvah chavivahi ad ma'od. It's a very, very dear and special mitzvah. Why? Based on this is one explanation why. Because bitachon is so fundamental, important in a person's life. So therefore, the Ner Chanukah, which represents and reminds us about the victory and the belief that they had in Hashem, we tap into that. And when we tap into that, we realize that it's a very dear mitzvah because it's such a fundamental principle. So that's a deeper connection between Chanukah and Mikeitz, having belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, believing in Hashem, unlike the Egyptians and the Greeks. And that's why this isn't repetitious from, I'm sure no one remembers what I said 12 years ago, but I do. So therefore, I don't repeat anything. So therefore, even though we cross-reference the base Aaron, the Parakah Rebbe, nevertheless, this whole stuff of the base Halevi and this tie-in from Rabbi Olshin and all these tie-ins over here and additional points, that is certainly not repetitious. Therefore, I'm defending myself, saying it's not repetitious, even though no one would hold anything against me from 12 years ago. And if you do, then you could fire me. All right. Let's learn some Hilchos Chanukah now.